here from Pathways Homestead, and it's been a little rainy this week, but you can see we've had a successful hunt. We did a little hunting this week, but I wanted to talk to you today about a Frugal Friday tip. Something that if you're going to be frugal at all in your foodways and in your provision of food in your house, you need to be looking at ways you process food. Whether that is chopping up vegetables or breaking down a whole chicken or actually butchering, you've got to have tools to do some at least minimal processing. It's way more frugal to buy food you've got to prepare yourself than to buy everything convenience that you just open a package. So we're going to talk about the tools of that and a cheap way to have tools of that. And one of the first things I want to show you is my cutting boards. I have a collection of these, and they're wood cutting boards. And I don't know if you can see how worn this one is. It's been used a lot. It's actually got a little bit of a divot here because it's been used so much. But this is just a scrap 1x8. I've got some little pieces of 1x6 for they're short and small for just chopping up a few vegetables. I've got the couple of pieces of this 1x8 that are good for cutting up stuff a little bigger. And then I've got a couple of 3.5 foot pieces of 1x12 that work really good for laying out a pork loin, or when we're butchering, we put them on the table to keep from cutting the table. And they also will make decent kneading boards and for making biscuits and stuff on and bread on. And we use these a lot. I've got a stack of them beside the refrigerator, enough for everybody in the family to have one when we're cutting stuff up. And this is just scrap. It is a piece of leftover 1x8 from a job. Just white wood 1x8.
Not treated.
Huh?
Not treated.
Yeah, it's not treated. White wood. It's actually, this piece is pine, I believe, but not treated. And it works great. It's nice and clean. It cleans well. And it's cheap. It's frugal. And then we're going to talk about knives. My personal preference is carbon steel bladed knives. This is a steel blade, and I can't say the name, Jane Sinkayo Smith something. Anyhow, this is a German Solingen steel blade, and it is quite used. And I bought this at a garage sale for 75 cents. And it is one of my favorite knives. The thin blade, the carbon steel, and takes a really good razor edge. I can use this. I've used this for skinning. I've used this, it gets used for chopping up vegetables and fruit all the time. I've used it to break down pork. I can even use this knife right here. This is one of my favorite knives to fillet fish with. And it works really good. It's not real flexible, but it is thin enough to get in places. And I like that. Here's another. This is an old hickory blade that I picked up at a garage sale. Again, for like 75 cents or $1. This is a Utica Forge, made in the USA. This is a really heavy, old butcher knife with walnut scales on it, and this was given to me by my friend Dennis. He knew I liked carbon knives and thought I could use this, and he gave me this one. And this is a really good, heavy, and I don't know how old this knife is, but this is a knife that will last generations. And it takes a good edge, and it sharpens well, and you can cut up anything with it. And these knives, when you find these are worth grabbing a hold of. And usually you can find them fairly cheap. Here's two knives. You can see this one is the butcher style, just like this one, only it's much smaller. And this one is called a clip point, or there's several different names for it. But these knives are knives I bought knife blanks from Jant's Supply Company. I believe that's right. And put oak handles on from pieces of oak board, actually pallet board, and they have made great knives, and we've used these for close to 20 years, and they take an edge well, and they didn't, I mean, I probably had $6 or $7 a knife in them after I made them, but that's been a long time ago, and they work great, and they've butchered hundreds of animals, and they also work great for chopping up an onion. And so we've got both these that we use. The one knife that I really like to use that is not carbon steel is I have got just a Berkeley stainless steel fillet knife, and I mean, you buy these at Walmart for like $8. And this one I have used for quite a few years, and it's really good. Takes an edge well, which is not real common in some of the cheaper stainless, but this one does, and several of them I've seen have, and I think they're pretty high carbon stainless. It comes with a knife sheath, cleans up easy. It's fairly flexible, and it works great for deboning. It works great for cutting stuff up. It's a really good fillet knife for that kind of thing. And I use this when I'm processing deer sometimes. I use it when I fillet and stuff like that. So that's another knife that I like that's not carbon. And all these knives, I mean, literally I probably don't have $30 in that pile of knives. And so this Frugal way to just, man, I encourage you, if you like good, easy sharpen, good using knives, start looking at the secondhand stores and garage sales and estate sales for carbon bladed knives, carbon steel bladed knives, and they work really well. Now, if you're going to use these knives often, one of the things you're going to have to do is sharpen them. And there are several different options for sharpening. There are several Frugal options for sharpening. This is a sharpening steel. It's got ridges here, and when you use it to sharpen, you just bring the knife at a slight angle, match the angle of the bevel on the blade, and just come down like that. Both sides about the same, and if you're just starting to dull it, it'll sharpen the edge back up. If it's really dull, you're going to have to use something besides this steel. But this steel works great when you're in the middle of something. You keep it in your pocket, and you just stroke it a few times, and you're sharp again, and stroke it a few times, and you're sharp again. And I use these a lot when we're processing and skinning. I've got some others that I've used that have cost me a little more when I worked as a butcher that I bought. And so, but this one, I probably paid 25 cents for this at Salvation Army, and I've used this a long time. Here's another sharpening tool. This is just a sharpening stone, a whetstone. It's best if you put oil on this, but I've used it with water too. And it's got a medium grit side on one side and fine on the other. And so if your knife's fairly dull, you'll take the rough grit side or the medium grit side, and you'll bring the knife down across it at the same angle as the bevel on the blade, as the sharpened bevel. You bring it across there several times. Try to do the same amount on both sides, and when you get it sharpened, sharper, then you bring it to the fine and you clean that edge you made up some. And then if you really want to finish that off and get it really sharp, after you've got it really sharp, you take this and you just stroke it a few times, and it smooths out the edge and makes it even sharper. Again, you can buy these stones like this, and they're a little expensive to buy a new one. I bought this one at an estate sale years ago in a box of tools that had a whole bunch of tools in it, and I sold a set of files out of that box for more than I paid for the whole box. So essentially this was free to me. here is another sharpening tool, and these, you'll often find something like this coming in a package with something like this at Walmart or at a sporting goods store. This has carbide steel blades right here, and then ceramic rods right here, and it's used to sharpen knives. It does a good job, and the way you'll use it is you just drag your blade through the carbide blades, and then once you get it fairly sharp, you bring it through the ceramic, and it cleans up the edge, makes it smoother, and that gives you a sharp edge. And so that's the tools you'd use to sharpen these. And all of this here is fairly cheap equipment, and equipment that will last a lifetime. And this is equipment, I mean, you buy a knife like this and you use it, and a stone like this and you use it, and I've got some here that I can tell you this story on, that when you use them, your grandkids can be using them and teaching their kids to use them. And so it's worth paying for something like that. It's frugal to buy something that'll last generations, even if you have to pay for it. But this stuff that is not terribly expensive. And so my Frugal Friday tip for today is to find carbon bladed knives and use old scrap lumber, and to process your own food, whether that's vegetables, whether that's meat, whether that's fruit. You even can use some of this in making bread. And I slice a lot of bread with this knife right here. This is a great, I get this knife where it is razor sharp and it slices bread really well. And I often set it on this. So processing your own food is very frugal. That's a Frugal Friday tip. But also finding good carbon steel knives and using old scrap lumber and having good sharpening tools for your knives, that will save you lots of money and time and help you to process less expensive food into things that your family will enjoy. So that's my Frugal Friday tip for today, and thank you all for stopping by the homestead, and I hope you are blessed, and we will see you later.